You're listening to Nereid Atlas, where we try to understand not just what's happening in the world, but why the same story can feel completely different depending on where you read about it. I'm Lukas. This week, multiple outlets reported that the US is preparing to revoke B1, B2 visitor visas for people who have applied for asylum. Those are the short-term business and tourist visas. Some reports put the number as high as 200,000. At the same time, consulates have reportedly paused immigrant visa interviews worldwide, while they wait for guidance on how to apply any change. What matters here is pretty immediate. Families waiting to reunite, travelers who once entered on these visas and later sought protection, and consular posts suddenly fielding confusion. The tension we'll be exploring is simple but sharp, the line between enforcing visa rules and chilling a lawful bid for asylum. And depending on which piece you read this week, you could walk away thinking this is a narrow fraud fix, or a broad attempt to deter people from asking for refuge. That gap in feeling is the heart of it. We went through 24 articles from 17 outlets across 15 countries, state-aligned TV, major newspapers, and a wire in the mix. And the picture shifts when you set them together. Elena's been tracing those shifts, and she's here to take us through what she found. Nereid Atlas, Synthetic Voices, Real Analysis.
The biggest mass visa revocation in US history might land on people who came in legally. That's the twist.
Wait, legally? You mean tourists and business travelers?
Yes. Reporting says the administration plans to revoke B1 and B2 visas from foreigners who applied for or are seeking asylum, up to 200,000 people. The South China Morning Post calls it potentially the largest single mass revocation ever and says an announcement could come in the next weeks.
That number is huge. So what's the story people are hearing?
Two very different ones. In one, this is an enforcement cleanup. Fox News quotes a State Department spokesman. They're coordinating with Homeland Security to identify and revoke the non-immigrant visas of foreigners who have come to the United States claiming to be short-term visitors, but then file for asylum to stay here permanently.
That phrasing does the work. Claiming to be short-term. You can almost hear the air quotes.
Exactly. It casts the act of seeking asylum as a bait-and-switch. And in Clarin's account, the State Department even argues that using a tourist or business visa to pursue permanent residency is fraud under the visa's terms.
So if you're mostly seeing that coverage, you might feel the rules were clear and people gamed them.
Right. Enforcement feels like fairness. Meanwhile, The Guardian frames the same move as part of a sweeping immigration crackdown and adds a concrete detail. The State Department will target B1, B2 visas issued between 2016 and 2026 for holders who sought or are seeking asylum.
Same facts, different center of gravity. One paints fraud, the other paints crackdown.
And each suggests a different kind of person to sympathize with. The enforcement read focuses on system integrity. The crackdown read centers on people who looked for safety and now face mass cancellation.
But asylum claims happen after you arrive, right? So a listener steeped in the crackdown framing hears, they followed the window they had.
The coverage isn't litigating asylum law, it's shaping moral intuitions, and the little administrative touches matter. Fox News also notes the revocations would be on a rolling basis and would not automatically lead to immediate deportations. That mutes the alarm for that audience. It sounds procedural, controlled.
While the scale, up to 200,000, keeps the alarm loud in the other framing. France 24 and others echo that this could be the largest revocation in US history.
So two reasonable people can read this and part ways. One sees a long overdue fix of a loophole. The other sees government power turned broadly against people who asked for protection.
And each thinks they're being practical. Who looks blameworthy shifts with the headline.
That's the pivot. Same mechanism, different moral map.
There's another layer here, right? It's not just the revocations.
Yes. Fox News reports the administration has paused immigrant visa interviews worldwide. so consular officers can complete training on new public charge guidance, deciding who might become dependent on U.S. benefits.
If you're waiting for a family visa, that pause isn't a technicality. It's months of life on hold.
And The Guardian's morning newsletter casts it starkly. All U.S. immigrant visa applications have been paused to tighten restrictions and limit access to those officials think could need assistance. In that frame, the system's posture is suspicion first.
So put these together, the mass revocation plan and the global pause, and I can feel how someone would think they're building a wall out of paperwork.
And then there's deterrence. Al Jazeera notes the policy could affect up to 200,000 and deter many more from filing asylum claims. That's the chilling effect spelled out.
Legally, is this settled ground?
The Guardian brings in a rights group attorney questioning lawfulness and reminds readers a federal judge earlier overturned an attempt to suspend the refugee system entirely. So in that narrative, the courts are a live check on overreach, not a footnote.
Whereas the enforcement narrative keeps it operational. Rolling revocations, training cycles, coordination with DHS. Orderly verbs that make this feel like housekeeping, not a rupture.
The New York Times says cancellations could occur in waves. That drip-feed rhythm matters. It keeps the story ambient, never dramatic enough to feel like a single break, but constant enough to recalibrate norms.
Like you wake up one day and realize the floor moved under you, but you can't point to the exact step.
And scale still haunts it. Deutsche Welle underscores that if carried out, this would be the largest mass visa revocation in U.S. history. That superlative can read as historic resolve or historic risk, depending on which assumptions you start with.
So imagine two co-workers. One has the Fox article open. Not immediate deportations, rolling basis. A quote about short-term visitors staying permanently. They think, tighten the screws, stop the scams.
And the other is reading The Guardian. Sweeping crackdown. All immigrant visas paused. A legal voice saying discrimination isn't justified by immigration law. They think people are being chilled out of a lawful process.
Neither is irrational. They're inhabiting different definitions of who's trustworthy, the agency versus the applicant, and different defaults about what a system is for.
And that's the uncomfortable part. Policy by revocation and pause can feel, to one audience, like restoring rules. To another, like rewriting the social contract without saying so.
If both stories are true in pieces, which truth decides what people do next? The one that calls it fraud correction, or the one that calls it deterrence?
Probably the one they encounter first, before they ever decide whether to apply.